Hello, and welcome to another future-proof look at a podcast thing. And my podcast thing this week, this day, because I'm not so sure of whether it's a week or a day thing, is the BBC Sounds app, which if you're a UK podcaster or UK podcast listener, you'll kind of be familiar with it. The BBC launched this piece of pod tech, and yeah, it's a kind of interesting thing. It has some exclusives on it. So, for instance, Jon Ronson's new podcast, and Jon Ronson's done stuff previously that's been behind a Audible paywall, but his latest one was behind the BBC paywall for, I think, the first 3 months of its existence. It's now free and readily available to all RSS-based apps. But it was first of all on here. So it's a app worth knowing kind of what's going on with it. But because it's a BBC app, oh look, Podcast Radio Hours is live right now. Because it's a BBC app, it's kind of limited predominantly to BBC shows. Certainly, it's an attempt to push their own material. Look at me, so I'm scrolling through the Unmissable Sounds. These are all BBC podcasts, BBC original podcasts, even if they're available elsewhere. And this is just kind of what it loads like for me. I'm not a regular user. As you can see, I've been listening to something, and I've listened to a couple of shows on it, but I'm not a regular user. So let's just see under podcasts what it kind of looks like. Catch up on all your favorites. Again, it's it's sort of one-stop shop. But some of these podcasts are not BBC ones, he says confidently, but I'm not actually 100% sure if that's true. I was thinking that, have you heard George's podcast? Is that a BBC Sounds original? Yeah, probably. But let's have a look. So there's a lot of feeling that you have to be a one-stop shop and you have to open yourself up to podcasts that are not just from your provider in order to kind of cut through. But it does look to me like all of these are basically, it's a kind of telling about how much the BBC produces, that they're able to kind of populate a whole app like this with basically big podcasts. But yeah, let's have a look. View all podcasts. This is all podcasts are available on the BBC app. And you can get music and stuff, and you can notionally get live radio. So that's, quite good. But I find the discovery element of it quite confusing. Browse all music, browse all speech. So they're calling podcasts and audiobooks. They're grouping them together under this speech tag, which makes sense because BBC does book and bedtime and does various other kind of more audiobooky things. But yeah, I've always found that actually a lot of the BBC shows, because there's so many of them as well, because this is everything that airs on the radio first gets dissected and utilized again over on this app. I find that it's a bit kind of random, and this is the main discoverability page, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 or so podcasts on the top carousel, and then 1, 2, so it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Is it 12 on each of these? It's a lot of stuff that's there and it's just kind of being spaffed out. And then if I go into My Sounds, so you can see I've only got a couple of podcasts here. If you wanted to subscribe to a podcast, so let's say we want to subscribe to Fake ARS, you hit this subscribe button, I think, and then you'd go into My Sounds and it's there. But then you have to manually download each. I mean, this might just be an error on my part, but what I found is that it doesn't automatically download. So it's see more episodes. We'll have to go because we don't want to bother downloading the 1 minute trailer, and then so it's 1 minute trailer at the top, and then episode 6 directly below that, which is annoying to me. There's also an episode 0, which is 2 minutes long. I'm not sure what the difference between those two things are. But let's say I want to download episode 1. I have to manually download it. And yeah, you see little things like this available for over a year. They've got built-in licensing agreements like they do on iPlayer, which I think is useful and interesting, and probably something that we'll see more of. But these are all the things I've downloaded. Does it have a list of your subscriptions? So in some ways it's a very simple podcast app. But if I wanted to get, let's say, Guardian, can I access the Guardian podcast in here? No, I can access the Guilty Feminist.
This podcast contains some very strong language and sexual.
But that's not a BBC podcast. So I'm a little bit not sure what the reality is. It does have an agreement with certain podcasts. What's an emphatically not BBC podcast? Serial. All right, let's have a look. See if we can find Serial. My Sister the Serial Killer. So I'm still a little bit not sure. So this is not wildly useful, but it feels like there's certainly huge privileging of the BBC's native content. And I can't say if for certain whether certain let's say interview whether certain podcasts make it through. Telegraph. Let's have a look. Another one. The Essay, the Media Show, the Report, the Essay. Let's try NPR. See if anything from NPR. No. Sound of America, the story of NPR. That does sound good. Anyway, so that's kind of like a basic little overview of it. I mean, I don't think it's great, and I think it has to be great in order to make it worth doing as a project. I think the radio element is pretty good, but the iPlayer app and that always used to have a perfectly functioning live radio segment, and then basically everything they wanted to do with podcasts, other than paywalling, was that was available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify or whatever. So it was clearly an attempt to focus in on this idea of the BBC as a global brand, where they can position some things that are exclusively for UK customers within because British is funded by British taxpayers within a certain time slot and that sort of thing. I can see why it facilitated that, but I don't think the app is strong enough to be used widely, and it basically breaks that fundamental rule of the podcast market, which is that you need to be able to use one app for all your podcast listening, and it doesn't really do that. So there's a quick look at the BBC Sounds app, and yeah, if you've enjoyed that, I mean, why wouldn't you? Throw a thumbs up. Is that what boomers say? Thumbs up on this video, and subscribe to the newsletter. That's the kind of key thing. futureproofnews.substack.com/subscribe. Yeah, speak to you again soon now.